You're tuned into The Collective Voice, thought-provoking interviews co-hosted by young adults, fostering deep faith through courageous questions. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our latest episode of the 787 Collective Voice. I'm Reverend CC Sukmak Sonye, dialing in this day from Croatia. And casual. Phil, I'm here as always with the Reverend Phil Dickey, dialing in from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas. I know.
And Phil will also get to introduce our guest today.
Yeah, so we have Alejandro Salazar joining us today, and Alejandro is a recent grad from UT Arlington in December of this past year. Had a Bachelor's of Science in Public Health, which I love because that was your undergrad, and Alejandro's about to start at Austin Seminary in the fall. So I would love to know the pipeline of Bachelor's of Science in Public Health to seminary, but it's probably more than what I actually think because there's probably some fun overlap and connection there. But I met Alejandro about a month ago, I guess now. I got to go out to First Presbyterian Church of Fort Worth and do a little workshop with Alejandro and some other young adults in their congregation, and there are a couple other pastors on staff there. Alejandro is the interim young adult coordinator at First Pres in Fort Worth, and we were just talking kind of all things young adult ministry and what it looks like to be a downtown church and be doing young adult ministry, and would love to hear your experience as the interim coordinator here and what it's like, what that's been like for you. But before we dive in on all that kind of stuff, Alejandro, are there other things you want to share with the audience just in terms of kind of biography and your background?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So I'll start kind of with my church background. I grew up Presbyterian in the PCUSA at First Pres Fort Worth. So I went to school not too far away from where I grew up. So I guess the transition into church work kind of just ended up naturally happening in a way. But I would love to give more background on that. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Did you have, when you were in college, did you continue to go to First Pres downtown Fort Worth, or did you get other kind of ministry experiences while you were in college?
So there was about a 2-year gap where I was kind of, church shopping just to see if I could expose myself to, more denominations or different ways of thinking. And really, unfortunately, it didn't go so smoothly. My school was more, how do I say this? They're a commuter school, so there wasn't really like big communities of faith that were more progressive on campus. Also, given that I'm in Texas and I recognize that, so yeah. But eventually, I did end up getting reconnected with First Pres Fort Worth. One of the pastors asked me and my dad to sing in the choir, and that's how I kind of came back in it. And I grew up a musician, so I played percussion for the longest time, and I sang in the youth choir growing up. So I was like, I miss it, so I may as well. And I did, and I have been constantly attending since, singing in the choir every Sunday. So, yeah.
Wow, what a gift. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to go from serving and being a part of your home congregation to then being on staff? I know that can be a big transition and a big shift.
Yeah, it absolutely was a big transition. Coming out of college, I had kind of already a different plan that was going to be in place, but when I kind of got the literal call, and as in I was asked to do or to step in on an interim role, I kind of took that very seriously. So it was interesting navigating what the boundaries should be like, because coming from a place of just worship to, okay, this is a place where I'm worshiping and I'm working. It was a little interesting, and I could say I'm still struggling with those boundaries or what they should be. But given that it's an interim role, I wouldn't expect that I would have that figured out by the end of this. But yeah, it's interesting. But honestly, it's been a joy to be part of staff here, and just see this side of church work and see what it really takes to get programs going or what it takes to get relationships going.
Can we talk a little bit about the interim aspect? Because I'm sure a lot of young adults out there have, you graduate college and you have either a gap time or something. And so this idea of stepping in, knowing that it's going to be a short-term experience and the challenge that might be as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I did have like a whole plan immediately after graduating. Technically, I would have had like 6 or 7 months to kind of transition into my new full-time job that I landed right before graduating with Amazon, workplace health and safety. But kind of really didn't want to do that much. And at the time, I wanted to do more global health and global advocacy or things like that. But with the Trump administration taking charge over the last year, kind of all of those positions that were available in the Fort Worth, Texas area all kind of vanished because of the funding cuts that happened at the beginning of that administration. So forgive me, what was the question again? That was a little context.
Well, I'm gonna pivot for a second here, because you said you had a job with Amazon, which I think a lot of people would be like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing! You have a job set up with Amazon." What made you? And not that we have to get like totally political here, but I think this is important for people, because I'm making assumptions here, and I don't want to make assumptions for you. I want to know what your reasons were for not taking that job at Amazon.
Yeah, so there were various reasons other than just not really wanting to do it. I also got the opportunity to go to Palestine and kind of bear witness for about a week there. Shout out to the Friends of Sabeel North America. They're the ones that made that trip happen, and then you kind of fundraise your way through it. But that was one of the biggest kind of moments for me where I was like, oh my God, this kind of advocacy is needed from Americans, at least. And I think I have the experience and at least the soft skills to try and do that, because my training in public health not only included specifically health issues or methods, but it also included a lot of advocacy. So that was kind of a big moment for me. I remembered like being in Jerusalem and kind of having those little breakdowns that you have in such a holy place, but also while seeing so much pain, so much suffering. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is that I understand that Amazon is not the most ethical company. I say not the most, it's really not ethical. And I didn't want to be that guy that was like trying to protect future company profits over the actual safety of the workers in the facilities. So yeah, that's kind of how I ended up deciding not to do it. But also being directly asked by my pastoral staff here to do this interim position was also a big factor.
Can I just say, like, that's amazing, and I hope that everybody hears this, right? That making an ethical decision to not, because I'm going to bet that the job at Amazon was a pretty good paying job and would have really probably set you up pretty well. I know some other folks who do work for Amazon, so I'm just assuming that it was going to be a comparable kind of thing. And so, yeah, just props to you for. I'm sure that was a really terribly hard decision. So it's really impressive.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it was a lot of thinking, a lot of praying for what I did to discern that. And I had up until like what 4 or 5 weeks ago to tell them no. So it wasn't. I had time to think about it, to really absorb my role at the church and try and learn what I could do, where it could go.
So as you graduated, you had this kind of path you were on. You were going to be working at a major corporation, but then something shifted, right? It sounds like you had an experience almost like Saul to Paul, right? Like of a moment of realization, a moment of clarity, completely shifted you on a track. Was seminary a part of the original plan, or is that also something that came with this shift?
That absolutely came with the shift. That was not part of the original plan. The original plan was to do like my master of public health in maybe 2 or 3 years, which I mean that's not off the table, but that was definitely not part of the plan.
Can you tell us a little bit more about then why seminary, and in particular why Austin Seminary?
Yeah, so my kind of realization, or when I fully accepted the call to apply to seminary, it was kind of late in the game in terms of application cycles. One of my pastors, he told me a good quote. Like when you're reaching out to the admissions offices, tell them, you're kind of working on God's timeline right now, not really on the deadlines or all that stuff. And I'm trying my best to keep up with it. But ultimately, Austin kind of ended up being the only one that I got accepted to. And I'll be honest about that. But also, I have so many connections there now, and just realizing that living in Texas gives you a lot of connections just to Austin itself. So there were a lot of people that approached my family about it. So there's a little bit of pressure there, but it's not that big of a decision factor. But I also had people in my congregation that spoke very highly of Austin, but also of Princeton, of Columbia, and of McCormick, and all these different seminaries. But Austin is kind of where I was leaning towards in terms of decision. Going to seminary itself was, again, that I already kind of outlined the background of the prayer and trying to understand what I was being called to do. that kind of came after multiple conversations with the people around me, my support system, so my family and my pastors and other young adults at the church, just about what seminary is and what that means, whether or not to pursue ordination, and how that all works. And so there was a lot of like encouragement of like, I believe you can do these. You have the skills. You have at least the soft skills to do it. You may not know, like, I can't recite Bible verses back to you. I'll be really honest. So if you're in a
Same.
conversation, yeah. So yeah, it's just more of the pastoral side of it, and the solid, I guess, education and skills would also give me a lot more credibility when speaking on issues of social justice or advocacy as well. In the world, in the nation we live in right now, if there's any form of, oh, this guy's a pastor or reverend, that turns heads and that perks up ears. Until, maybe you start talking and then they're like, oh, this guy's not, actual pastor. But that's, a whole thing. At least you get the attention first before, somebody makes their decisions or judgments about what it is you believe as a pastor. But yeah. So that's kind of where the whole thing came from, I guess.
Well, it seems like clearly ethics play a big role in decision making for you previously. So I'm curious how you see this idea of a background in public health playing into what ministry might look like as well, and what that overlap really looks like.
I've been trying to figure that out already. um, Part of me was like, I loved what I learned in my public health program. Shout out to UT Arlington and all the faculty there. They were amazing, inspiring, and honestly gave me all of the opportunities that I had today and led me down the path even to work in the church. I guess I didn't want to let go of that public health training, specifically the advocacy and understanding the science and information. So anywhere from informatics to epidemiology to just general leadership and advocacy were all things I wanted to carry with me. In learning about the public health space and global interventions, domestic interventions, things like that, faith-based organizations and NGOs had a huge role to play, or do have a huge role to play in all of those. And actually, so shameless plug here. I just went to the United Nations to attend the high-level political forum on sustainable development. If you're not familiar with that, sustainable development goals are a huge part of public health training, the public health world. In 2015, the United Nations unanimously adopted 17 goals, and they said by 2030, we're going to accomplish all these things. To no surprise, they're behind. But in one meeting that I went to specifically about clean energy, and this one was kind of close to me. I went to this meeting because I'm involved with my church's mission partnership in Honduras, works with energy, clean energy, providing sustainable and clean energy. What we do is we provide solar power systems to single family homes and sometimes to community buildings, but it's really depending on what's needed, but it's also done in mutual, mutual partnership throughout all of it. But anyways, sorry, try not to go on too many tangents.
Great.
I attended this meeting and they noted that, or the Undersecretary General of the Council on Energy or something like that, I don't remember the whole committee name, noted that since 2015, universal energy access has increased from 85% to 92%. He did not give a total number, but he did say that of that percentage increase, 495 million of those came from decentralized energy sources. And that means solar panels, essentially, or little, hydro stations in whatever town or village they may be in. But a part of that, he attributed over 90% of that 495 million to NGOs and nonprofits. So when I was there, like in the conference room, literally like on Tuesday, I was like, oh my God, that's like the direct action. That is the direct result of people caring and people in the public health world caring and utilizing the NGOs. Maybe they're not all public health trained, but they're doctors, they're regular people from the church that are really making this happen and making this change actually happen in the world. So it's there. The combination of public health and ministry is definitely there. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet. I got to see and be exposed to that over the last week in New York. But I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that's going to look like for me.
Well, I can tell you, coming from a small parish before I took this position that an understanding of health can be really useful when visiting people in the hospital, even. And as a I don't know what your career is going to look like. I don't know what opportunities you're going to have. You're naming opportunities around advocacy, public health, social justice, maybe even like a global organization type of work. And then I also think like the amount of information I heard about my parishioners' health was baffling to me. I'd be in a hospital room and a doctor would come in and they'd look at me and my collar often and be like, do you want them to stay or leave? And I'd get up to go because, it's not my family member, it's a parishioner. And they'd be like, oh, it's fine. And just disclosing diagnoses and procedure and what's going to happen going forward. So it is an important thing to be able to advocate in that situation, right? Or when they leave, make notes or make comments if the local church is somewhere that you're headed. And I'm sure, regardless of the long-term scope of your career, you already are working in a local church, and you probably will. Again, especially for your SPM. But why don't we stick with a little bit of a dream, right? What your dream would look like if you had the ideal situation coming out of seminary. Maybe you don't know what that is yet, but beginning to put to words like, this is what I feel called to do at this moment. This is what makes my spirit come alive. Like, I remember going into seminary thinking, this is what I want to be doing. And it's good to keep that, like, write that down. You have the privilege of
work at Austin Seminary. That's what you had a vision of.
was not my answer going into seminary, but unique and non-traditional kind of work was, and that's what I'm doing right now. So which is a blessing. But we'll talk about seminary, and we'll ask you more about seminary in a second. And there is this quality of seminary is tough. And it's not just tough because of the academics, it's really tough because of how your faith goes from being like a living, breathing thing to being like a thinking, writing, essayed thing. And so, yeah, holding on to your dreams as you go in is kind of my whole point, which is why I want to ask you about that.
Yeah. So if you can't tell already, I'll say it directly. My dream, or like where my spirit comes alive, is mostly through direct service. Whether that be traveling internationally on behalf of the mission committee or anybody else that organizes those trips, or it be in our community outreach center, working with the food pantry. That is one thing that is core to me, has kind of always been core to me. I'm an Eagle Scout. I grew up doing a lot of volunteer stuff through high school, through my youth, and that's always been a part of me. And I think that's something that I will absolutely keep as my dream. If I were to give it like a title, and not like a defined, like this is exactly what I have to do, because I feel like that approach in the seminary is maybe not always the best, because you kind of close yourself off to other ways that the Spirit may be working with you. It would be to be a mission pastor. But specifically, I had an excellent role model growing up here. Her name is Robin Michaelev. She is absolutely incredible in the work that she does as our family and missions pastor. And she has, I don't know how to describe it, but she is like a really great role model for how equitable mission partnerships could be done, and equitable and ethical mission partnerships can be done in the context of the church. And so her job would be my dream job in a way. That's what I would say for now. But of course, I'm not trying to close myself off to anything.
Watch out, Robin. Coming for you. You got a few years to get there. Are there things that you're nervous about going into seminary? Like, are you like, I don't want, maybe fearful is the wrong word, right? But is there just like worries that you have going in?
So I absolutely am. Number one, it's going to be the most reading I've ever done in my life. Specifically the most like faith-based or theological reading. I'm so used to, science and statistics-based research, but this is totally different. I'm nervous for that because I'm not a very fast reader, and I was looking at like the schedules of the reading weeks. I don't even know what that really entails, but I feel like they give you like a week to read a book. So I'm nervous about that. I don't know how that actually works, but
I
Yeah,
will say, go talk to the library staff. The library staff are there to help you and assist you, and like you can get books on audio. You can get like there's just so many ways.
okay.
Lean on the library staff because they are absolutely incredible.
They are.
I'm
Shout
writing that
out
down.
APTS library staff.
Totally.
Also, get comfortable with skimming and not having read everything. Give
See,
yourself permission.
I'm not a good
Yeah.
skimmer either. I get it, buddy. That's hard for me too.
Yeah, I haven't quite figured out how to turn off the voice in my head that reads every word aloud. So,
Same.
yeah. But other than that, I do have some other things I'm nervous about, but I'd say more of the excited nervous, like the whole deconstruction in a way, and really questioning every single little thing that I had not questioned before. I'm so excited for that. But again, there's a tinge of nervousness there. Like I've been warned that the first year in seminary, people are kind of like, okay, what am I doing here? Why am I here? It's the most challenging. It's the part where you really kind of your foundations are a little shaken in a way. So I'm so excited for it, but I'm also so nervous for that. So um, I don't know. It's this weird kind of mix of those two emotions. But I think excitement is definitely prevailing over the other.
Are there specific things that you're like I was often the class heretic because I thought if I can't question this now, right? Like what's the point? Like this is why I'm in seminary. Are there specific things you're going in thinking about, like not to say challenging, but just wanting to really dive in deeper on?
Yeah, my identity as a reformed Christian, like, you grew up, at least in the PCUSA, you grew up hearing about it, and I never really put a ton of time into trying to understand what it meant. But also living in Texas, Reformed Christians are definitely a minority. So I grew up hearing so many things about, oh, you're Reformed, you're a crazy liberal doing all this stuff, things like that. But I'm nervous to understand what the Reformed identity really means. I mean, I guess the history going all the way back, to Calvin and the Reformation and everything. Um, like I've never fully understood what that meant, but I feel like that's one topic specifically that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try and question this as much as I am. Maybe there are some, I guess, assumptions in me that I have when I approach the Bible and say, okay, I don't know, because I was raised Presbyterian, so I might have this like certain thing in me that's how I do it in a way. Um, yeah, that's what I would say.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'm Lutheran, Phil's Methodist, so this is a nice little fun ecclesial bunch. And I grew up in a Lutheran church, and I went to a Lutheran campus ministry, and I went to Lutheran seminary. So Lutheran was the language that I spoke, and what I've greatly enjoyed about working at Austin Seminary is it's not Lutheran, and it's not actually even just Presbyterian. There's Methodists. There's Seminary of the Southwest really close by, with Episcopalian students. So I hope you get a broadening of that too, even as you get specific. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what your interim work has been like. What does the young adult ministry at your congregation look like? I know you're in a season of transition, right? Interim literally being a transition. Is it springing up into something beyond your time? What are the hopes there and the longings?
Yeah, so definitely in a transition time. There was the person in this position did it for approximately 10 years, really developed those relationships and those groups. And kind of what we're seeing is, I guess, a transition from the old guard into the new guard in a way. And I use those terms as in that's how the groups have literally described themselves, as the old guard. So not trying to, call anybody old here. So
Oh, geez.
really, I've been trying to put my effort into creating a more young adult, as in specifically that traditional 18 to 29 range. So getting those college students at TCU, maybe from UTA, but there's not, we don't have a ton of connections there. But also everybody, just out of college and post grad, and doing stuff, I guess, whatever phase of life you may be in your 18 to 29-year-old range, because there's pretty good arguments and research and studies that have been done that say everybody's kind of in a different one at some point, and you could go through so many transitions in such a short period of time before you come out in your 40s suddenly, and okay, now you're like you're stable, you're in a spot, you're going to stay here for a little bit. Um, but again, I'm not 40, so I don't know.
Still waiting for that. Still waiting for that stability.
Yeah. So the idea behind it has been trying to create a more intentional space where we can have intergenerational relationships within the church. One thing that we explored in the discussion with Phil was some sort of mentorship or a relationship building program that we would have. I've heard of good examples from, I think, Fourth Presbyterian Church in Chicago. They had a really great young adult program where they would do kind of like weekday dinner and like share or just talk about things, but it would be intergenerational. So it would really create this intentional community of relationship. And the reason I hear about this, I did not get a chance to talk to the pastor directly over there, but my sister, when she lived in Chicago for about 7 years there, she got really involved with that program and with that church. And she talked very highly of it. And I trust my sister a lot. She's really great. She's really cool. Also, shout out to her too. But yeah, so the vision has mostly just been trying to create intentional space for not only the groups that we do have, but the traditional young adult range. So whether that be service opportunities or weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings, or just the regular Sunday school classes. But often that's pretty low attendance, we'll be honest there. But yeah, so the approach that I take to most jobs that I've had in the past is to leave it better than I found it, even if it was already, doing really great. So even if it's this tiny little change on the staff side, that's something better. So in my personal approach to this job, I'm trying to see what I can do to make sure that this is not only a sustainable program, it stays going and this group keeps meeting and, they develop the relationships while also maintaining the openness of a group that is kind of expected to be in the church. It's about just ensuring the sustainability of these programs and just making sure that I'm helping contribute to something that's going to be going regardless of whether it's me or it's somebody else, whoever steps in this role next. Yeah, making sure those methods of sustainability are still there and kind of concrete in a way. Yeah.
Will you share just a little bit about what some of those things, like when I was there and chatting with y'all, I know we talked a little bit about the different kind of programmatic aspects, but one of them being the, I think you mentioned it, like the food pantry. Is that the right term for it? Like, I don't know exactly what y'all called it, but we just talk about a little bit of the different aspects that you're doing in terms of young adult ministry at FPC.
Sure, I'll do my best. So volunteer opportunities are a big a thing, I guess, for the young adults, anywhere from 18 to what we have, the older age range in our group. So we do our third Thursday bonus pantry that occurs on the third Thursday of every month. And we're lucky to have a mission outreach center that's owned and operated by the church. So we provide a meal and we have a little bit of time for fellowship right before, and then we kind of get right into service. And that usually has about 6, 7, 8 people that come to attend. Some of them are not members, some of them are members, but it's really just kind of a local opportunity for people to come and serve. Another thing that we do is our bi-weekly study and discussions. So right now we're covering the Wired Word, which is essentially like an article that comes out, I think, every week, and they discuss a different, Bible verse and then kind of relate it to the world as it is. But that'll be our opportunity to also do book studies. So another one that we just studied was Being Presbyterian in a Dysvangelical America. It's a really great read. It kind of helps you solidify and understand your identity as not only a Presbyterian, but as a Reformed Christian too, and just understanding your context, especially if you live like in the South. Yeah, so those usually happen twice a month over at some restaurant or something. They don't actually physically happen in the church, but they last anywhere from like 1 to 3 hours, depending on how many people come. And it's a really great time for people just to catch up and just be friends in a way, but finding that friendship in the Christian community.
As you go to seminary, as you move and you leave your home congregation, I know I left my home congregation when I went to college, and I always loved going back to it, and especially like post-seminary, post-ordination, where it was like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I probably won't really get to go back that much. And I do, sometimes for special things, funerals. Now in this role where I'm not in a congregation, I can go more often, but I wonder how you'll think about finding a faith community that can be your own. Maybe it will be the seminary community. There's regular worship there. You'll meet a lot of people, but what might it look like for you to take a little piece of your church with you, or in this transition as you seek to leave home in maybe a more strong way than you did during undergrad? I don't know. It sounds like you were nearish home then too. Have you thought any about that community and, what might be awaiting you in this next season?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I just found out that there's a few people from our young adult program that are moving to Austin soon, so I will have a literal connection down there too. So that's really great. But one thing that I do want to take with me that I kind of grew up understanding in this church was the sense of what we call the radical hospitality. Um, I want to take that with me kind of wherever I go, as much as I can be at least hospitable to not only the people in seminary, but the people walking by on the street. Just, hey, like your tie, or hey, your shoes are great, kind of thing. That was set as an example for me growing up, and that's definitely something that I want to take with me throughout my time in seminary and even after that.
We talked a little bit about seminary and how it often is very heady. Are there certain like Christian practices or spiritual practices that you currently practice that you really love that like help you stay grounded and rooted in your faith?
Yeah, prayer and meditation do help a lot. Meditation is in low key for me. It's kind of just like sitting in silence in like a dark room, which that sounds more like a hobbit, but that's okay.
Hobbits are welcome. Hospitality for hobbits too.
Yeah. Another, I don't know if there's a labyrinth anywhere near, but I would spend time walking labyrinths. Just again, it forces you to be slow. It forces you to take the turns. It forces you to walk with the pace, right? You're not trying to just get it done and thinking about the next thing. You have to be in the moment when you're doing those. So
There's a
those
great
are
labyrinth at
definitely
Austin Seminary. You're in good luck.
perfect. I'm excited for that. um, yeah, so definitely prayer and meditation. Also occasionally, actually like picking up the Bible and reading it is a pretty good habit that I've started to get into more. I mean, I have read the Bible through at least once in my life, but I wasn't like I wasn't the person to be like taking notes in the margins in a way. I would read it, I'd try to process it, understand it, and then move on. But I do want to be more intentional about, I guess, well, simply taking notes and really trying to understand what that means to me in my life, and maybe in the context of what I'm learning in seminary as well.
Nice. I love that. I think silence can be really overrated. I'm really bad at silence. As a part of our trip, we spent a couple of days at Taizé, which is a monastic community in France. And a big part of their communal life and communal worship is silence and time in silence. And it's a welcoming space for young adults. So I highly recommend any young adult who's searching for an international place of belonging, welcome, and prayer and community to look up that space. And it was easier there in the French countryside, I felt like, than sometimes where I am at home, with the even if it's not noise, it's the distractions around. So silence is a growing edge for me. That's something that I want to work on more personally. I'm wondering, as you think about your next chapter, as you think about the people that you'll be going alongside of, almost, right? Like people from your young adult group are also making the move to Austin, going into a new cohort with the seminary. What are other things I think my biggest question is actually about your biggest question going into seminary. Do you have something that's like on your heart? Something that you already spoke a little bit with us about deconstruction. Is there any one big question like that's burning for you in this next season?
No, trying to answer that question. I wouldn't say there's one big thing. It's kind of like a multitude of little things in a way. Specifically, I'm curious about the way that I do things, and not only trying to understand, but questioning whether or not I feel called. Like, is this the right way to do it? In a way, not that there really is a right way, but there's certain things that I would consider to be like, solid, like completely solid. But there's also like the interfaith aspect too. I do want to learn more about the other Abrahamic faiths and the other faiths in general. I'm not fully sure how much exposure I'll get to interfaith cultures and understandings at Austin, but that's also kind of a big thing for me. So there's one kind of major question that I had, and this was as a result from my time in Palestine. The contradiction of being in such a holy place, but also witnessing so much. I had a moment where I was like, if I witness the continuation or the successful erasure of Palestinians from this area, I don't know if I could believe. I had that kind of breakdown moment. And the way I'm thinking about it now is honestly, for me, it's kind of a little bit of a selfish approach, because I feel like that minimizes the faith that does exist in the Palestinians and everyone that is there, the Christians that have been there for thousands of years, those literal Christian bloodlines that have been there for thousands of years. Completely, like, it's selfish to me. It feels selfish to ignore all of that. But I understand there's a lot of complicated emotions behind that. So that one is kind of something that I'm personally struggling with, just witnessing that and then seeing how it's continuing and even expanding into surrounding countries in modern times, like right now. That's kind of my biggest struggle with that. But again, that in a way that's kind of separate from what I'll be learning and seeing at seminary, because in seminary, at least that's my understanding. In seminary, I'm learning the theologies, learning the doctrines, learning about why we do the things that we do, not so much maybe like the faith side of it, in the context of maybe liberation theology would be the one that applies in this. Yeah, that's kind of like an underlying thing that I've got kind of personally going on, but otherwise it's mostly just broad things, the little things that I'm questioning, or wanting to question or understand further.
What a gift that you got to experience that before you started seminary. I went to the Holy Land as like the last class, like an immersion course in seminary, and yeah, in a lot of ways, it did very much change me as well. I remember Elias Chacour's book we read, Blood Brothers, I think is the name of it, and it talks about how people come all the time to visit the dead stones but miss the living stones in the Holy Land, and just, whew, um, it's good. It's really good. So yeah, props to you for already wrestling with a lot of those things as you enter seminary. One of my favorite questions, because I am the old guy here, that I ask a lot of times and tokenize our young adults that we interview is, what's one thing you really wish that the church, whether that's kind of like just local churches or the church at large, really knew and understood about the young adult experience of faith? No pressure speaking on behalf of all young adults.
No, not at all. Don't worry. Let's see. Something I wish the church understood would be, I guess, the amount of patience that's needed with young adults. I think, Phil, you had a really great quote about how this is kind of the new middle school in a way, where everybody thinks they know what they're doing and they truly don't. A level of patience is needed to deal with that specifically. And that also is present in me, I'll be really honest too. So there were points during this job where I was like, okay, why am I not doing as good as I thought I was? Or, this kind of like imposter syndrome in a way. I'm very lucky to have had people at this church that were patient enough to understand where I'm coming from, but also why I'm struggling with what I'm struggling with. And if that could be reflected across every church, that would be incredible for every young adult, I think, in my opinion, for every young adult going through either that post-grad phase, or maybe they're in their 30s or 40s and still going through another transition. It would be incredibly helpful, not only to the relationships, but the deepening of those understandings and of those relationships itself.
We'll hear that, church, and hear back, Alejandro, that we wish you good luck and Godspeed in your season of transition. And we'll definitely be hopefully seeing you on and around campus. Phil mostly works from Dallas. I am in the office, but Phil comes down from time to time to be present with us in our little corner of the seminary. Thanks for the work that you're doing, the witness that you're bearing, and I hope that as the poll feels open and specific, which I love, right? Like the duality of that you'll find other ways in Austin to get involved with both specific and broad places. There's Interfaith Action of Central Texas that does a lot of work with refugees. There are local congregations that have, food pantries and other things so that your servant's heart, which you name so well, can be put to use, even as you sit in the classroom and write your papers and all of that. So thanks for joining us. Do you have any other closing thoughts?
Yeah, just quick shout out to First Presbyterian Fort Worth as well for fostering so much of that in you as you grew up and continued to reach out to you. And I love that you said you got connected by getting back involved in the choir. That's so awesome. But yeah, sorry, I jumped in on Cece's question there. But anything else you want to share?
No, not really. I'm so excited to be entering into this phase of life. And I'm so grateful for the background that I had and the way I was raised and everything that I received. And I'm excited to take that and run with it in a way. I'm just very excited.
That's great.
Thank you.
Well, my final question, because I love to ask this, is there any space that you've really been experiencing or finding beauty lately?
Oh, let's see. On planes, ironically. And I've been on a few planes recently, and it's just, I don't know. My fiance is really amazing. She is very good at taking time to reflect, and most of that time happens on planes for her. She'll literally sit and write a letter to herself, to the people around her, and I've been trying to take after that and just be present, even on a plane. Even if there is a crying baby, that's okay, but there's still peace in that. But yeah, that's where I would say that.
I love that. I got a couple plane rides coming up too, so I'm going to take that with me. I appreciate that. And Cece obviously does here before too long as well. So Alejandro, blessings to you in this transition, but also in the ministry that you continue to explore and that you're already doing. And we're just grateful for your time and all that you've done in the world.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Collective Voice, the premier podcast of the 787 Collective. For more information, visit us at 787collective.org or find us on social media. And if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to subscribe, rate us, and share a review. For when you do, you are tricking the algorithm for the common good.